Nadia's heart hammered against her ribs as she adjusted the badge clipped crookedly to her blazer. It was her first day as an intern at the prestigious corporation, and the grand annual luncheon was meant to welcome new talent. She hadn't expected the event to be this dazzling. Crystal chandeliers glittered overhead, polished marble floors gleamed underfoot, and waiters in tuxedos carried trays of drinks that looked far too expensive for her taste. She hovered by the entrance, nervously clutching her tote bag. The banquet hall stretched before her, filled with round tables draped in white linen. A few were labeled with golden cards that simply read, "Reserved." Reserved for who? Executives? VIP guests? Nadia couldn't tell. She only knew she needed to sit before she looked even more lost. Her eyes darted to an empty seat at a neatly set table near the front. No one stopped her as she shuffled toward it, so she slid into the chair, sighing in relief. Finally, she whispered to herself, setting her bag down. Safe. Across from her sat a man in his late 30s, maybe early 40s. He wore a crisp navy suit that looked tailored, but his expression was relaxed, almost amused, as if he'd been watching her internal panic the whole time. "First day?" he asked, voice warm and unhurried. Nadia's cheeks flamed. "Is it that obvious?" "A little," he chuckled. "But don't worry. You blend in better than you think." She gave a nervous smile, fiddling with her fork. "Thanks. I was terrified I'd sit at the wrong table." The man raised a brow, clearly fighting a smirk. "And yet, here you are." Nadia blinked. "Wait, this isn't." Before he could answer, a waiter placed sparkling water before them. Other sharply dressed men and women began filling the seats, chatting in low voices. Nadia noticed diamond cufflinks, luxury watches, and poised confidence radiating off them. These were not interns. Her stomach sank. "Oh no," she muttered under her breath. "I've done it, haven't I? I'm at the wrong table." The man across from her leaned forward slightly, resting his chin on his hand. "Why not just enjoy the mistake? It's not every day an intern gets the best view." His casual tone made her relax for half a second, until someone new joined the table. A woman with sleek hair and a sharp presence leaned over to greet the man warmly. "Good afternoon, sir." Then she turned to Nadia with a flick of curiosity. "And you are?" Nadia scrambled. "Oh, I'm just the intern. Really sorry. I'll move right away." But when she tried to stand, the man gave her a subtle nod, almost like permission to stay put. His eyes glinted with something unreadable, but not unkind. Nadia sat back down, biting her lip. The table conversation resumed around her, effortlessly professional and intimidating. She tried to focus on her plate, but the silence between her and the man grew heavier. She had to say something. "So," she blurted, "I heard the CEO is kind of impossible." The man paused mid-sip of water. One eyebrow arched. "Impossible? Yeah, I mean, not in a bad way, but you know, demanding, scary, the type who memorizes everyone's mistakes." At least, that's what the other intern said. Her nervous laugh bubbled out before she could stop it. "I really hope I never bump into him." The man set his glass down slowly, amusement tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Oh," he said softly. "And what if you already have?" Nadia froze. Her fork hovered halfway to her mouth, and her brain scrambled to process the words. "What if you already have?" The man's calm, steady gaze didn't waver. His tone hadn't been sharp, nor mocking. If anything, it carried an amused challenge, as though he'd dropped a secret into the air, waiting to see what she would do with it. Her first instinct was denial. "Ha, that's funny," she muttered, forcing a laugh. "You almost sound like you're the CEO yourself." The man smiled faintly, but didn't answer. Instead, the woman seated beside him leaned in with a whisper that carried just enough for Nadia to hear. "Sir, you're cruel. You haven't even introduced yourself yet." Nadia blinked. "Sir." The man extended his hand across the table, eyes never leaving hers. "Adrian Khan, CEO of Khan and Company." The words landed like a thunderclap. Nadia's pulse roared in her ears, and her grip on the fork slipped so violently it clattered against her plate. Heads turned briefly before resuming conversation, but Nadia's world had just narrowed to the man across from her. She opened her mouth. No sound came out. Opened it again. Still nothing. She felt like a fish tossed onto dry land. Wait, she stammered, cheeks burning. "You're the CEO. The impossible, scary, terrifying boss I just insulted." His eyes danced with mirth. "So I'm terrifying, am I?" Her entire body wanted to slide under the table and never return. No, I didn't mean it like that. It was just rumors. You know how interns gossip. Not me. Well, technically me, but also not really." She groaned and dropped her face into her hands. I should just quit now. Adrian chuckled, low and smooth. Relax. I've been called worse, by people with far higher salaries. Nadia peeked through her fingers, mortified. I can't believe this. My first day, and I've already blown it. On the contrary, he said, folding his hands neatly. It's refreshing to hear an honest opinion for once. People rarely tell me what they truly think. Or what they've heard. She lowered her hands slowly. You're not mad. If I fired everyone who repeated gossip about me, the company would be empty, Adrian said dryly. The table erupted briefly in polite laughter at something another executive said, but Nadia barely heard it. Her nerves still buzzed, yet a strange shift had occurred. The CEO didn't seem angry, if anything, he looked intrigued. Still, panic bubbled in her chest. I really didn't mean to sit here. I thought it was just a regular table. And yet you stayed. His tone was teasing. Only because you told me to. She shot back before realizing she had raised her voice. Several pairs of eyes turned toward her. Nadia shrank in her seat, wishing the ground would open. I mean, I didn't want to be rude. Adrian's lips curved in a slow smile. You're far more interesting than half the people who usually sit here. Perhaps it's good you made a mistake. Nadia blinked, uncertain if she'd heard him right. Was the CEO actually complimenting her? Before she could respond, the master of ceremonies tapped the microphone at the podium, signaling the official start of the luncheon. Conversations hushed as all eyes turned forward. Nadia exhaled shakily, grateful for the reprieve. But even as the speeches began, she could feel Adrian's gaze on her from across the table. Not harsh, not cold, but assessing, curious. And somehow, that was even more terrifying. Applause rippled through the hall as the first speaker finished his welcome address. Nadia clapped along, forcing her hands to move even though her palms were clammy. She tried to steady her breathing, but her mind kept replaying the last 10 minutes. You insulted the CEO. To his face. And he didn't fire you, yet. The sound of cutlery clinking and chairs shifting filled the room as waiters brought in the first course. Nadia stared at her soup as though it might provide an escape plan. From the corner of her eye, she caught two executives at the far end of the table whispering behind their napkins, their eyes flicking toward her. Heat rushed to her cheeks. She knew what they were thinking. Who is this intern? Why is she here? What did she say to him? Nadia shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Every fiber of her wanted to vanish into the background. Instead, she sat at the very table everyone was watching. She tried to distract herself by sipping the soup. Wrong move. Her hands trembled so much that the spoon rattled against the porcelain. A droplet splashed onto the pristine tablecloth. Nadia's stomach dropped. Before her panic could spiral further, Adrian's voice cut through her thoughts. Low, smooth, directed only at her. Careful. The cloth costs more than most interns earn in a month. Nadia's head snapped up, horrified. But when she saw the teasing glint in his eyes, she realized he wasn't scolding, he was trying to make her relax. That's not helping, she muttered, lips twitching despite herself. Adrian chuckled quietly, then leaned back as if satisfied. Good. You still have your humor. That'll serve you better here than perfect table manners. Her chest eased slightly, though the knot of nerves never fully left. The luncheon continued with speeches, polite toasts, and carefully curated conversations. Nadia tried to remain invisible, nodding politely when spoken to but saying little else. Yet she couldn't shake the sensation that Adrian's gaze returned to her more often than necessary. Not judgmental, just watchful. When dessert was cleared and chairs began scraping back, Nadia sighed with relief. She would escape, retreat to the safety of the intern desk, and pray the CEO forgot her existence. But as she gathered her bag, a deep voice stopped her. Miss Nadia. Her spine stiffened. She turned slowly to find Adrian standing, tall and composed, waiting for her with a subtle gesture toward the side door. Several pairs of eyes followed them instantly. Nadia's pulse skipped. Oh no, he's going to fire me in private. She followed him out of the banquet hall, her steps echoing against the marble corridor. They stopped near a tall window overlooking the city skyline. Adrian turned, hands in his pockets, posture calm yet commanding. For a long moment, he simply studied her, and the silence stretched so taut that Nadia thought she might break. Finally, he spoke. Tell me, Nadia, do you always believe what people say about others without meeting them yourself? Her throat went dry. And no, sir, I didn't mean to. He raised a hand, silencing her. His tone wasn't sharp, but it carried weight. Most people in this company treat me like a title, not a man. You were unfiltered, honest. She blinked. Is that a bad thing? A faint smile tugged at his lips. Not necessarily. It's rare. Nadia exhaled slowly, her shoulders dropping. The tension in his voice was gone, replaced by something quieter. Almost thoughtful. You may have embarrassed yourself, Adrian said, his gaze holding hers, but you've also made an impression. And in this company, that's far more valuable. Her heart thudded. She wasn't sure if that was a warning or something else entirely. Nadia gripped the strap of her bag, the leather digging into her palm. Her mind replayed his words, you've made an impression. She couldn't tell if that meant she was about to be demoted, blacklisted, or something stranger. An impression, she repeated cautiously. Adrian's gaze swept over her, steady and unreadable. Do you know how many interns cycle through this company every year? She shook her head. 50. Sometimes more. Most arrive eager, wide-eyed, and desperate to please. They blend together, faceless, cautious, forgettable. You, his lips curved faintly, sat at the wrong table, insulted me to my face, and still managed to hold your ground. Nadia's mouth went dry. I wasn't trying to stand out. I was trying not to faint. That, he said, is precisely why you stood out. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The muffled noise of the luncheon filtered faintly through the closed doors, but here, in the corridor, time felt slower. Finally, Nadia swallowed hard. So, what happens now? Am I fired? Adrian's chuckle was quiet but sharp. You're bold enough to ask me that directly. I figure I've already dug my grave. Might as well measure the coffin, she muttered before she could stop herself. His laughter came then, low, genuine, startling in its warmth. It echoed lightly in the marble corridor, and Nadia blinked at him in disbelief. When he caught her expression, he arched a brow. You expected me to roar. To confirm those terrifying rumors. Kind of, she admitted. He stepped closer, and Nadia stiffened. He wasn't looming, but his presence was undeniable, commanding the space effortlessly. Rumors are useful. They keep people in line. But sometimes, he said, lowering his voice slightly, they keep people from speaking the truth. Her chest tightened. She couldn't tell if he was scolding her or confiding in her. What do you want me to do? She asked quietly. Adrian regarded her for a long moment, then smiled as if arriving at a decision. I want you to stop being afraid of shadows. If you think I'm impossible, prove me wrong. Work harder. Smarter. Speak up when others stay silent. Her eyes widened. You mean, I still have the internship? Unless you'd prefer I end it here. His tone teased, but his eyes watched her intently. Nadia shook her head so fast she nearly lost her balance. No, I want to stay. I want to earn my place. Good, he said simply, as though the matter were settled. But just as she exhaled in relief, he added, understand this, Nadia. You've caught my attention. That can be a gift, or a burden. Which it becomes is entirely up to you. Her stomach fluttered with nerves, though not the same kind as before. For the first time, she saw the man beyond the title. Sharp, demanding, yes, but also strangely human. He glanced at his watch, then back at her. Go on. Return to your fellow interns before they suspect you've been executed. Nadia's lips twitched despite herself. Some of them probably will. Adrian smirked. Let them. Fear makes for entertaining gossip. With that, he turned and strode down the corridor, his footsteps echoing until he disappeared around the corner. Nadia stood rooted to the spot, heart racing, torn between terror and exhilaration. She had stumbled into the worst mistake of her career, and somehow walked out with a second chance. But deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. The doors to the banquet hall swung shut behind her with a heavy thud, and for a moment Nadia just stood there, pressing a shaky hand to her chest. Her pulse hadn't calmed since the conversation in the corridor. I'm not fired. I'm noticed. That realization carried equal parts relief and dread. Finally, a voice hissed from her right. One of the interns, Sana, darted over the moment she spotted Nadia. Where on earth did you go? We thought you got lost, or worse. Nadia forced a weak smile. Just stepped out for some air. Air. Sana's eyes narrowed. You were sitting with them. At the VIP table. With him. Nadia swallowed. A small cluster of interns had already gathered, whispering furiously as they tried to sneak glances at her without being obvious. The words reached her in fragments. CEO, mistake, fired, gutsy. She wanted to shrink under their stares, but instead, she adjusted her badge and tried to appear calm. It was a mistake. I sat at the wrong table. Wrong table. Another intern whispered, wide-eyed. You mean you actually spoke to the CEO? Heat rose in Nadia's cheeks. Briefly. I don't think he'll remember it. It was a lie, and she knew it. Adrian Khan didn't seem like a man who forgot anything, or anyone. The interns exchanged looks, their curiosity buzzing like static. Nadia wished desperately for the ground to swallow her whole, but the MC's voice rang out again, signaling the final announcements. Everyone hurried back to their seats. Nadia slid into the back row beside Sana, who kept giving her side glances. "You're braver than I thought," Sana whispered. "I'm not brave," Nadia whispered back. "I'm just unlucky." But as she listened half-heartedly to the closing remarks, a different thought stirred in the back of her mind. Am I unlucky? Or, did I just get handed an opportunity no intern ever does? When the luncheon finally ended, the interns shuffled toward the exit. Nadia trailed behind, her mind still tangled in knots. The grand chandeliers sparkled above as executives exchanged handshakes and goodbyes. Nadia avoided looking toward the front, afraid of catching Adrian's eye again. Still, as she passed the tall glass doors, she couldn't resist one last glance. And there he was. Adrian stood among a small circle of executives, listening to one of them speak. He didn't look at her directly, yet for the briefest second, his gaze flickered past the group and landed on her. Deliberate. Unmistakable. Nadia's breath caught. The corner of his mouth twitched, just slightly, before he turned back to his companions as if nothing had happened. Her stomach flipped. Outside, the interns spilled into the lobby, already buzzing about the event. Nadia walked silently among them, her thoughts spiraling. This morning, she had been just another face in the intern crowd. Forgettable. Invisible. Now, she wasn't sure what she had become. A target. A risk. Or maybe, something more. One thing was certain, she had stepped into the CEO's line of sight, and there was no going back. By the next morning, Nadia convinced herself it had all been a fluke. Yes, she'd embarrassed